Retro.
And welcome everybody to a special episode of the Animanicast. And welcome everybody once again to the Animanicast. This, of course, is the podcast that is dedicated to the animated television series Animaniacs, as well as other shows within the Rueggerverse, such as Tiny Toon Adventures, Pinky and the Brain, and Freakazoid. But today, we are talking about something else. We are actually going back in time a few weeks to Atlanta, Georgia, and MomoCon. Yeah. Well, first of all, before we get out to that, I gotta say thank you for your patience, listeners, in the release of this episode. May is always a very busy month for me since it's the last month of the school year. In case you didn't know, I am a teacher, and I'm busy with finishing the school year with those students, and I was also finishing preparations for a Washington, D.C. trip that I was leading, so I was frantically getting paperwork ready, as well as printing and, making over 120 shirts for all the kids and parents who are attending. So that was time consuming. Oh yeah. Plus, I was also getting ready to travel to Atlanta, Georgia, with Tom Ruegger to attend MomoCon from May 24th to 27th. It was an amazing convention with really great people, top to bottom, leading it. It's mostly an anime con, I guess you could say. However, it's also video games. So if you're into anime and video games, you got to check out MomoCon. It actually saw over 55,867 unique attendees, which totaled to over 157,000 people in attendance over 4 days of the event. What? Yeah, it was a pretty darn big con. And there was lots of cosplay. They had a whole video game section that was going on 24 hours, which I'd never heard of before, but it was pretty intense. So people were, doing the whole twitching and all the things all night, and it was very impressive. Now, Tom Ruegger, of course, was there with me. I was helping him out with his booth, and he was busy on all 4 days. He was signing autographs, doing lots of commissions. We have some of those posted on our Instagram page in case you wanted to see what some of those commissions looked like. And, of course, he was meeting fans from all across the country. And one of our good friends, and she's been on the show. I feel like she's been on more than once, but I think she's only been on one time before. It's Joanna Davidovich was there. And she lives in the Atlanta area, so she came on down on Saturday and was working on some amazing Animaniacs art at Tom's table. And she even did a commission collaboration with Tom. It was really super cool. It was a fan-requested Yakko and Groucho, recreating the mirror scene from Duck Soup. And Joanna created one of the best pieces I've seen. Obviously, Tom was, helping get some guidance from Tom here and there, but honestly, I would love to see an animated sequence featuring Yakko and Groucho recreating that scene. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the original scene in Duck Soup is Groucho's walking past a mirror, and Harpo is dressed up as Groucho, and they do this whole back and forth. Check it out on YouTube. I can't put an audio clip in because it's a silent, bit, but it's really impressive, really funny. And it's Joanna did an amazing job showing Yakko and Groucho doing the mirror scene. Very cool. And anyway, maybe, who knows, maybe in another Animaniacs reboot down the road, Joanna is the showrunner and she'll be able to do that scene for all of us. I hope. Anyway. The MomoCon staff was amazing, including Tom's MomoCon handler, Kat. Kat, you're amazing. And of course, the people who attended were amazing. It was a pleasure to talk to each and every one of them. And the layout of the convention was the only thing that was not so great. It was, there was nothing really they could do about it. There was lots of walking. The convention was much more spread out than they're used to, I guess because there was already a convention kind of on one of the days. I think it was the Disney, that new Disney card game. Arcana? I don't know what it's called. Anyway, they took out the whole middle section, so we basically had to walk approximately a mile every morning down to Tom's table. And then to get to the actual panel room, it was another walk, another half a mile in one direction, and then go up to like the third or fifth floor. I'm not exactly sure, but it was a lot of walking. And I guess, a blessing in disguise because, we did eat quite a bit of fried Southern food, got some fried green tomatoes, and got some fried chicken and a bunch of other great stuff that, honestly, you need to do that extra walking the next day. So, sure, I guess it was probably a blessing in disguise. Anyway, the panel itself was a lot of fun. Joanna Davidovich was there, of course, like I said, and Kelly, unfortunately, she was scheduled to be there, but was under the weather, so she was unable to attend. That was a bummer. Paul Rugg was also not in attendance, but it was due to a very good reason. His daughter was just about to give birth to her first child, and since MomoCon was right around the same time, he just said, I can't be there, which everyone totally understood. And so, here's the thing. In case you didn't know, his grandson has been born. Hooray! So, Paul is a new granddad. So, congratulations to first-time grandfather, Paul Rugg, and your entire family, Paul, especially your daughter, Jillian, who, she did all the hard work, of course. But, congratulations. The audio of the panel had to be cleaned up a little bit. There wasn't a way for me to hook up the mixer, or the recorder, I should say, to the mixer. So the audience questions have been processed a little bit so that they're easier to understand. Overall, it was a really enjoyable panel. Lots of great questions for Tom. Great Animaniacs memories and some singing from Joanna. And an Animaniacs origin story that you've never heard before, and you may never hear again. We always have a blast going to these conventions and meeting fans from across the country, and we'd love to come to your neck of the woods, wherever that might be in the world. If you'd like Tom Ruegger and Paul Rugg to come to your local convention, just email your convention and let them know you'd like to see Tom and Paul make an appearance. You can send your convention to watertowertalent.com, and they can get all the information on Tom Ruegger and Paul Rugg. And now they can also request animator and producer Mitch Schauer, as well as Animaniacs musical composers Steve and Julie Bernstein. Yas! These folks are going to go wherever they are invited. So once again, please reach out to your local convention and then just send them on over to watertowertalent.com so they can get more information on Tom, Paul, Mitch, and the Bernsteins. Well, that was a big intro, so I'm not going to do an exit thing at the end of this. So make sure you follow us on all your socials. Subscribe, like, and subscribe to our stuff on YouTube and all the other junk. And we'll see you soon with another review of a Tiny Toons Luniversity episode coming soon. Without further ado, here's our Animaniacs Super Panel from MomoCon. Okay, everybody, welcome to the Animaniacs Super Panel. It's everything you ever wanted to know, within reason. Yes. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Joey. I'm a host of a podcast called the Animanicast. And we are a podcast that talks about everything within the Rueggerverse, such as Tiny Toon Adventures, Pinky and the Brain, Freakazoid, and of course, Animaniacs, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. We have a wonderful artist, an animator,
and an Animaniacs super fan. It's Joanna Davidovich. Let's bring her up. Come on up, Joanna. And it's the same hat.
I know. So people would recognize me.
Yeah. Hello, Joanna.
Hello, Joey. Is this mic on?
No, not yet, but I'm sure it will be shortly. So
right.
please take either one. But of course, the person we're all waiting to see is the man himself. This is the creator of shows such as Tiny Toon Adventures, Pinky and the Brain, and of course, let's see, there's Road Rovers and Hysteria. But of course, yes, but also Animaniacs. Let's bring him up. It's Mr. Tom Ruegger.
I'm just going to jump in for 1 second here, and
Yeah.
I just want to, each of you, I'd like you to spend a moment, just right now, we'll take just 10, 15 seconds, and I want each of you to make a mental note, think of what's your favorite episode of Animaniacs. If you have a title in your head, or maybe there's just a sequence that you like, you're doing this, or you could just give that a moment's thought, lock it into your head, and we're going to go back to that a little later in the program, okay? So everybody come up with that title or that scene, all right? And
Okay.
we'll join you, be back on that later.
There's the audio. All right, well, so Tom, I think we got to throw it to you for a question. A question that many people might have, and that is, of course, how did this show come about?
Well, Joey, everybody probably already knows that story. I mean, you've heard it dozens and dozens.
Yeah, I've heard it before.
Yeah, you don't want to hear that. That's
No, I mean, please. I think for the folks that
all right.
It'd be nice
This
to
is
entertain.
the last time I'm going to tell this.
Okay, okay. Well,
All right. So, Paul Ruegger is usually here to join me on telling this story. We have music going on over there. It's just entertaining. That's the entertaining part. Enjoy. So Paul Ruegger and I grew up together in Kansas City. And I lived in this house, and then there's a house between us, and then there's Paul Ruegger's house. And so in the house between us, I mean, this is how the Animaniacs thing ultimately came about. That was where the Disneys lived. So the Disneys lived in this house, in between our houses. And so we would go over there now and then, Paul and I, and Walt was always in the backyard drawing, right? So we went over there one afternoon, and he's drawing this like little nasty squirrel thing. It's all scratchy. And he said, "What do you think? It's my new character." And we're like, "Well, it's a little scratchy, Walt." And so he said, "Well, what do you think I should do?" And I said, "How about something more elegant, some smooth?" So I drew this circle. He said, "Wow, I love that. What's its name?" I said, "Well, that's a circle." and he said, "Well, what do we call it?" And no. So Paul said, "Well, no, he needs more personality." So Paul put a couple more circles around the big circle. He said, "What do we call it? That's great. That was a great character." And he said, "No, Walt, it's really not there yet." So what should we do? So Paul and I put a couple eyes and a nose. He said, "I know what it is. His name is Malcolm Monkey. He's perfect." And Walt ran off. He said, "Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Tom." And he went in the house, and we never saw him again. So, I mean, he left town. So Paul and I went back to our job at the meat packing plant, and we were a couple of years later. We come out. We want to go to the movies, so we go to the movies. And, we're covered with blood because we've been at the plant all day. So, but we go to the movies, and there's a short, and it's called Playing Pals, and there's this Malcolm Monkey up on the screen, and it's by Walt Disney, but he's changed the name to Mickey Mouse. And we're like totally ticked off. I mean, we gave it this drawing, and so he became this multimillionaire. We said, "We're going to get him. We're going to get back." And we ultimately saved our dimes. We moved to California, and we couldn't land a job until the '80s. So we finally got some work, and that's when we made Animaniacs. And But this is not in the Guinness Book of World Records, but it should be. Yes, it's true. Paul Ruegger and I are both 127 years old. Thank you.
Don't look a day over 97.
Well, I think I don't quite remember the story that way last time I asked you that question.
That was the same.
That's fine.
Not the same. Okay.
But okay, well, let's go back to reality. I'd like to ask Joanna. Joanna, you are, of course, you've been a fan for many, many years of the show.
Yes.
And you're now an animator.
Yes.
Can you please tell us, like, how has, I guess, Animaniacs impacted your life? Did you have a story to tell us about the show as a child?
September 13th, 1993. I had been a huge fan of Tiny Toons as a kid who really loved television. I know, unusual in the 80s and 90s. But I had been watching these promos for this new show called Animaniacs. And I was like, something in my belly was like, I gotta be here for this. And then the day finally came, rushed home after school, turned on the TV, and then I said, oh my God. I need to make this. I need to make cartoons. Because this is the most fun, brilliant, lively, energetic, delightful thing that has ever existed in the history of mankind. And people get paid to do this. This is crazy. And so I became an avid fan. I learned how to program a VCR, which, if you were a kid in the 90s, you realize that was kind of a thing. So that was my dedication to the show, that I learned to program a VCR. And I watched it every day after school, wore out the tapes, made more tapes, made extra tapes, and drove my family crazy singing all the songs and reciting all the lines. It made me very popular in school, I should say. I was a popular kid because I was like really obsessed with cartoons. And everyone was like, she's so cool. But still, there was something about it that was special. And it wasn't that I do love all cartoons. I love animation, love the Disney films, love Looney Tunes, but there's something special about what was going on at Fox Kids and Kids WB at that time. There's those shows, and they were all Tom Ruegger shows that had a spark to them that I felt like was calling to me. Like I wanted to join that world of people that created such delightful things. And it was this wonderful balance of good-natured and tongue-in-cheek. So it wasn't simperingly sweet, and it wasn't completely cynical and nihilistic. It was just perfect, and it was classic comedy. It got me interested in history, in classic film, in comedy, in music. It just opened up so much for me. And like to this day, I share these cartoons with my kids, and they feel it too. So there really is something special about Animaniacs, and it's timeless. It's perfectly, beautifully timeless. And I think that everyone can enjoy it from now until doomsday. And I think I lost the thread of what your original was.
Well,
I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, by the way. That's very nice.
that is very kind word. Now, I hear that you wrote a letter as a child.
I wrote many letters.
Because you didn't, not emails back then, right? I mean, it was actual physical letters, or was it both?
Well, the internet was invented around the time I was a child. And I discovered the internet, and that led me to the world of fandom. Guys, you have no idea. If you're young now, you have no idea how exciting it was when the internet happened. And you could go and talk to other people who liked the same shows as you. Like, it's completely natural now, but back then it was like, what? It's amazing. And these people, they said, hey, did you hear? Animaniacs is now being renewed. And I was like, what? That's impossible. That's crazy talk. What are they thinking? And they said, if you want more Animaniacs episodes, we got the inside scoop here. Write to these addresses, to these people. And I said, gimme. I wrote to Warner Brothers, wrote to the executives. I flooded them with so many letters like, please don't cancel Animaniacs. Please don't cancel Animaniacs. I made a petition. I sent in votes for cartoons for the promotions that they were doing. And I started getting some letters back.
Would you care to read one of those?
Yeah. I brought props. Yeah, one of them. Now just imagine I'm a kid. Animaniacs is my absolute world. And as I said, I was very, very popular in school, but somehow that didn't fill the void. So I hope you understand. I'm being sarcastic. Animaniacs was so much of how it was my comfort. It was my friend. It was my world for a good many years. And I know that's maybe some of you guys have a fandom you feel that way about, so you can appreciate what it. Yeah, you know. So I got. Well, first I want to read what Warner Brothers Television sent me. Just all of signed Warner Brothers TV Animation, just all of them, I guess, sent me this letter. Dear Joe, thank you for your great letter. We always appreciate the opinions of our fans. Your letter will be forwarded to the proper person. Meanwhile, we hope you don't give up on us. We've got some new shows coming out. Check them out. Thanks for writing all of Warner Brothers TV Animation. But that didn't prepare me for what I was going to get in the mail soon after that. I still have it in the envelope. Should I read the whole thing or just part?
Whatever part you want to read. You don't.
Okay. So this says, Dear Joanna, I just reread a letter you sent me a while back, and please believe me when I say completely sympathize with your opinion. I miss seeing new Animaniacs adventures. I miss the entire cast of Animaniacs, the Warners especially. I suspect that someday someone at Warner Brothers will realize that for one brief shining moment in the mid-90s, they had lightning in a bottle. They didn't know what to do with this, so they opened the bottle and let the lightning drift away. The creative team that built Animaniacs is gone. The actors are still available, the writers could be brought back, the artists would jump at the chance. The directors would love the opportunity to return, but it doesn't look like Warner Brothers wants that to happen. Things could change in a week, a month, a year, a couple decades. In general, I am a pretty optimistic guy. I look forward to working with the Warner Brothers crew. If you want to send any other requests for new Animaniacs episodes, home videos, and features, I suggest writing to specific person, specific address. Probably not there anymore. Also saying, once the Animaniacs movie, which was Wacko's Wish, for home video is released, you might want to encourage people to write to name redacted, name redacted, name redacted, name redacted, to encourage them to make more Animaniacs home videos, feature films, and television shows. If these major players at Warner Brothers realize that Animaniacs has a strong fan base, they might sit up and take notice. All of us at Animaniacs thank you for your constant loyalty and support. We're glad the show brought me pleasure, and I think it's no better goal for a show to have. Warmest regards, Tom Ruegger.
Well, yeah.
To send that beautiful letter to a really, really desperate kid who needed that connection. And that's why I've kept that letter for so long. And I appreciate the time you took and your generosity. And it was a really sweet thing to do.
Well, we love you, Joanna. We really do.
Yeah. This guy.
Joanna is one of the greatest animators living today. Honest to God. The way she draws characters, and it could be animated characters, her own characters, almost any character. You gotta track down, when you're online, Joanna Davidovich, and she draws like no one else. And hopefully one day, as many of you might want, but Joanna really she has such talent. She needs to have her own show. So encourage people to check her out. And I'm hoping one day to watch the Joanna Davidovich cartoon shows.
I'll keep drawing no matter what. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Well, we're going to get to questions from you guys for Tom, and this time he might actually tell true stories. We might know.
I tried.
Okay, but before that, do we have any Freakazoid fans here in the crowd? Quite a few. Okay, so Tom's gonna be a tour guide right now. I'm gonna talk, but Tom, if you guys want to line up right here in the aisle. Behind Tom. So come on, Freakazoid fans, please join. Don't worry. We won't dump water on you or anything silly like that. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Okay. So we are going to go on a flying tour with Freakazoid right now. Okay? So we all know Freakazoid can sort of fly. So everybody put your hands up like Tom right there. Very good. And we all need to go like that. Now, as we go ahead, Tom, here we go. Okay, Freakazoid fans are now going on a flying tour of Freakazoid's favorite places. Why, look to the left. There's the Honey Harvest Festival. Oh, look! A bear riding a motorcycle. Yes. Oh, look, to the right. Hula Girls. Oh, to the left now you'll see Harry Connick Junior High School. They're celebrating daylight savings time. It does rule. Oh, look to the left. Hula Girls. Okay, that's right. Oh, and look to the right now. There's Dexter Douglas's house on 564 Funicula Avenue in Washington, D.C. Oh, look to the right. Hula Girls. Hula Girls. Hula Girls. Oh, and look to the left. It's the Great Hall of Spackle. Ooh. Oh, and finally, let's all stop at Papaya Queen, where we can all get a delicious papaya drink and spit it on each other. Thank you so much. Thank you, Freakazoid fans. Thank you. Thus ends our tour for Freakazoid. All right. Well, good. Now we got some exercise. So, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. I don't see a microphone out there, but I can, if he's projecting loudly, we can. Oh, we have a wireless mic right there. Fantastic.
Right there.
If you have a question, just you raise your hand, and if you want to take it around, or I'll walk around.
There she is.
Yeah.
There, she's ready to ask the question. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Joey, she's right there.
Oh.
Hi. Talk right into that mic.
And also Animaniacs. How did you do the research for historical facts? Since the internet was early invented.
Yeah, well, like I told you in that earlier story, I just kind of make it up. But a lot of us really enjoyed history. I mean, one of the first cartoons we ever made and showed, we premiered it at Comic-Con in '93, in July '93, and it was the Michelangelo story, the Sistine Chapel, hooked on a ceiling, and we took elements of different things. We took a Kirk Douglas, excuse me, we did a caricature of Kirk Douglas, who was didn't play Michelangelo. He played Van Gogh in another.
Charlton Heston played Michelangelo in.
Right, but we didn't use his caricature. We used the Kirk Douglas caricature, and then so that was the Sistine Chapel, and of course they like painted naked people on ceilings, so the Warners were helpful. But research, really, we had about 5 to 10 writers who were very talented, very funny, very smart, and each writer brought his or her own sort of interest into the show, and they would write things that they cared about. So, of course, not all of it was historical, just a handful of things. I mean, but Sherry Stoner, for instance, wrote something called I've Got Your Can, which was a Slappy Squirrel cartoon, and it was literally based on she came in, Sherry Stoner, one of the writers and producers of Animaniacs, came in just livid one day, and what's wrong? And she said, I was just walking down the street, walking my dog, and I threw a soda can into my neighbor's trash can, the recycle can, and the neighbor came out and said, excuse me, that's my trash can. You can't put a can in that's mine. And Sherry, of course, then wrote, I've Got Your Can, Slappy Squirrel, getting even with Candy Chipmunk. So research was the individual writer. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's another question right over here. Yes, sir.
I've been a big fan of Animaniacs since I was a child. It was very influential. So thank you so much for creating that show.
Oh, thanks.
So my question is, one of my favorite shorts was...
By the way, there's dancing next door if anyone needs that. Okay.
One of my favorite shorts of Animaniacs was Common Out. Where Wacko was just mercilessly torturing this clown who's just trying to do his job. So I was wondering, what was the impetus for that? Was it member of the right staff afraid of clowns? Like, why was Jerry Lewis, wasn't Jerry Lewis the clown?
Well, Paul Rugg, of course, famously did Mr. Director on Animaniacs. He did his Jerry Lewis impression, and he developed that when he was working at KABC in Los Angeles. He did where Paul Harvey did a talk show. Hello, I'm Paul Harvey. Good day. And Paul would do that impression on Freakazoid, but he really liked the Jerry Lewis thing. He liked doing, the crazy Jerry, but he also liked to do the very serious Jerry. It would be, really the pontification of the lugubriousness of the entire scene is fantastic. So Paul would, so then, of course, Jerry Lewis made a film called The Day, thank you, Joanna, The Day the Clown Cried, which someday might be released. And so with clown...
Explain the premise of it?
What?
Do you want to explain the premise of that movie?
You go.
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay. Day the Clown Cried, a very tragic movie. So Paul loved the whole thing with Jerry in clown face, and quite honestly, Paul Rugg is scared of clowns. So there you go. And he imbued Wacko with his own fears, and it's a beautiful, funny cartoon, and of course it's famous for the song. And I'm going to have Joanna sing the song right now, if you don't mind.
When the whippoorwill whimpers in the wind can whimper back. Oh, nice and chubby baby.
Very nice.
Okay, very nice. Question, I'm going to go back to the Lizard guy.
Thank you for saying.
Sure, I'll sing anytime.
I'm a fan of all the shows, like Animaniacs and Freakazoid, and I was just thinking about how do you come up with such fun dialogue and everything? Everything's so snappy, all the references and everything. It's just I want to know where did that come from?
I'm glad to share what I can tell you. First of all, we had time to make the show. We started making the show in October of 91. Now that sounds really early, but we were just developing it. We didn't get a go-ahead until February 92, but we were developing things. So we had a long lead time. We weren't writing scripts on the show until April of 92, but that's still, almost 18 months away from air. So we didn't have to make cartoons that weren't any good. Often when you're doing these productions, you have 3-4 months to turn it all around and put it on the air. We had, like I said, 18 months. Now, we were also making each cartoon, not in half-hour blocks, we were making each cartoon separately. So we had literally hundreds of cartoons we were making for this 65 episodes of the First Order. So I had each cartoon had a little card on this big wall. And when you say, why are all the cartoons snappy dialogue? Well, not all of them are. Some of them are less than great. But we only put really, really, really good ones on in the first month. We really, top-loaded it with our very best material. And it's remarkable how important that is. So when you're ever in this situation, always front-load your good stuff, because it creates great audience appreciation. So even when we do throw in an occasional lemon, you're still in the afterglow of the early good ones. A lot of the writers came from improvisational comedy. Rugg, Deanna Oliver, John McCann, Sherry Stoner, Peter Hastings. They all worked either Groundlings or the Acme Comedy Group. And they had an ability to come up with very, very funny stuff. And part of improv is that you never reject what the person ahead of you has said. You accept it. And so these guys could just almost create comedy sitting there like in the room because they would just bounce off each other so beautifully. So we were blessed with really just wonderful writers. And of course, the animation itself looks beautiful thanks to all the artists and directors.
Can I add an observation as well? Learning more about the writers on the show is, like you mentioned before, they all had very, very deep interests and experiences of themselves. So I think that a lot of the humor and insight and references that are on Animaniacs are because the writers and artists themselves were so diversely interested in so many different things. And that enthusiasm for what they're interested in kind of shines through. And that's why, I got interested in a lot of stuff because it's just seems so cool. Just like, oh, what's this black and white parody of like this little indie film called Casablanca? Maybe I'll check that out someday, And so I think that it's because you let your writers not just improvise, but bring themselves to the stories.
Yes, Paul Rugg wrote something called Hearts of Twilight, which was a parody of Apocalypse Now. But it used that same crazy Jerry Lewis director in it. And you can't imagine Mr. Spielberg's getting the script. He says, wait, we're doing Apocalypse Now on Animaniacs. I mean, I'm not sure the kids are going to follow that. And later on, we did The Third Man on the Pinky and the Brain show, which was, that Third Man is not really a kid's movie. So, again, we brought things that we liked and we tried to make them at least accessible to the audience. Yeah.
I also watched The Third Man because of The Third Mouse several times because I was like, I don't understand it the first time I watched it.
Yeah, The Third Man's a great movie.
Yeah.
Make sure you see that.
Yeah. I ended up liking it.
Yeah.
The
Zither.
You remember Who's on Stage skit with Slappy and Skippy? Was that hilarious to me the first time I watched it. I'd never seen as a kid. I'd never seen Adam Costello. As a result of watching it, I went back and watched Adam Costello do it, watched a lot of their other stuff. So now I actually own like DVDs of Adam Costello now because I watched that.
Well, Abbott and Costello, thank you very much, I'm sure. And that comedy routine, I loved it as a kid. It was they had a show. It was on their half-hour show. It was in several of their movies. And so John McCann and I wrote Woodstock Slappy, and we do love Slappy, and we love the idea that she was taking Skippy out of the city where the influences of the peace movement had turned him into a sort of a junior John Lennon. And so we put the Who, because Who did appear at Woodstock. And so we thought, well, let's do this. Let's do Who's on Stage. And
Here we go.
I'm telling you. Who is on stage? Yeah. Who is? Yeah. Oh, so the name of the band is Yes. No, it's Floppy. Yes is on at this concert. Then who is on stage? Yeah. Who is? Yeah. That's what I just said. Yes is on stage. No, Yes is not here. Who is on stage? What are you asking me for? I'm not. Wait. Let's try this again. Do you see the band on stage? No, I don't see the band. That's a different group entirely. On stage, see the band? No, I don't. Get rid of those gentlemen and drive us to the stage. That's not the band. The band's performing later on. Who's on stage? You tell me. Who? The name of the group on stage. Who? The name of the group. Who? The group on stage. Who? The band. You know what that is? Performing later. Right now, listen to who? That's what I want to know.
yeah.
This is a good thing. Wink, but don't make noise.
What I love about that clip is that there's even a joke that like Skippy and Slap, like she winks at Skippy right there, like we did.
Yeah.
So it's like it was like a bit that she knew. It's a very.
Yeah. Well, I think Slappy just likes the applause. She's like, I'll take
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we did.
And so they would constantly go around wherever the Who was playing, and they would do that bit in front of everyone. So we originally had that little sequence, very brief. It was John wrote that little section. I said, "No, John, we're going to milk this for a few minutes."
That was about how.
Anyway,
Okay, we have a question right here.
Yeah, so watching the show as an adult is an interesting experience because you realize how many jokes. You managed to get a lot by the censors. How did you do that?
Well, I'll tell you, the one that everyone talks about that gets by the censors, I can understand why I got by it. It's because it wasn't in the script, and what happened was the actress, Tress MacNeille playing Dot, she was late for the read-through. So everyone else had done the read-through, but now we were recording, and she came in, apologized, sorry I was late. And so she's doing her lines as they're happening live, and we're recording them. So we get to this part of the Nile. What's up the Nile? Or
Not Home on Denial.
Home on Denial.
Hercule Yakko.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hercule Yakko. And so they're looking for fingerprints. Yakko says, search this room for fingerprints. And so we cut to Dot, and she's holding the artist formerly known as Prince in her arms. And she says, I found Prince. And Yakko says, no, fingerprints. Now, so the line is supposed to be from Dot, oh, never mind. And she throws Prince away. But so Tress is reading the script and says, and she sees Yakko say, fingerprints, and does it, I don't think so. And we all laughed, and we left it in. So that's the line that's in there that wasn't supposed to be the line in there. And so the censors, it on its face, written in the script, it looked kind of innocent, but ultimately it got through. Here's a line that no one ever seems to mention, and I think it's kind of blue. It's in King Yakko.
Joanna and I are thinking the same one. Yeah.
And hello, nurse, is the princess, and she comes up to Yakko and she says, "Sire," and he goes, "Maybe later."
No, he says, wait till we're alone.
Me too.
He says, wait till we're alone.
Okay. That's worse, I think. Yeah.
But she kind of smacks him away a little bit. There's a little she pushes him away.
Yeah, so that makes it okay. Makes it okay. Anyway, yeah, we did get away with lots of little things.
Okay, let's go over to here.
Thank you for knowing the right.
No problem.
Kind of going off of that question of getting things past things. I know that Animaniacs is sometimes poked fun at WB and Warner Brothers themselves. Did y'all ever get any kind of questioning or any kind of feedback, shall we say, that it was like, hey, you said this about us. What was that about?
With Tiny Toons, we had made Tiny Toons prior to Animaniacs, and they watched us much more carefully on Tiny Toons. And Steven watched us much more carefully. And but then when Tiny Toons went on the air and was like an instant hit, suddenly we could do no wrong. It was like, leave them alone, let them do what they do. They're going to be fine. And and we always dinged the WB. I mean, matter of fact, do you have that little clip of them singing that song from Hysteria?
I don't think so, no.
No. Okay. Anyway, there's a song where they're singing, you might know this song, where they're singing on the hilltop. It's like the Coca-Cola commercial from years ago where they said, if you all don't watch our show every single blessed day, the kids WB will get uppity and will probably cut our pay. And also Freakazoid, that song was like, if you don't watch our show, we'll be unemployed. So
and the end of Freakazoid, there was also a Gene McKirk. Wasn't it like Monty Python-esque
Gene McCurry, and
Yeah. Thank you for watching our show. And then Bob Daly and Terry Semel, who ran the company, came through. Thank you. They didn't like that, actually. We did get a call from the head guys. Bob Daly said, "Why are you putting me in your show? Don't do that." Well, of course, we got in big trouble, and many of you know this. Prior to going to air, prior to the first broadcast, we put a big balloon of Yakko up on the water tower, really, on the Burbank lot, a big balloon of Yakko. And so Bob Daly pulled into the lot that morning, and he looks up, and this is him telling us later. I look up, and there's Mickey Mouse up on the water tower. And And so he went to his office. This is what got us in trouble because he embarrassed himself. He called up Disney, called up Michael, who was in charge of it? And he said, "What the hell are you guys doing?" They thought it was a prank. He thought Disney had put Mickey Mouse on our water tower. And they said, "What are you talking about? Have you gone senile? What is going on?" So he tracked down McCurdy and me and brought us over and said, so you can imagine my embarrassment. And so he actually made us, at that moment, add whiskers to Yakko and Wacko. They were sort of smooth. And he said, "They look too much like Mickey Mouse," because he only did that because he was embarrassed.
Yeah, I'll put up the original designs right there of the Warners right here so you can see what they look like kind of without those whiskers. But yeah, these are the pencil tests right here showing Yakko with just those smooth cheeks. And if you watch in, I think it's in the Hello Nice Wars with Mr. Director, you can still see one or two shots from behind.
A bunch of people, but Rich
where Yakko
did a lot.
Still has a smooth cheek. So, yeah, that was a.
You can let run those. Those are good.
Let's move those in the back. All right, I have a question. Yes.
So, first, what do you think that's involved in starting out in Animaniacs?
Can you get really close to the mic? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's sort of like the video that's started out with Animaniacs. There's Wish Mouse, ones that you see others insane.
Yes. Oh, which one is insane?
There was like Wish Mouse and Witch.
Well, I always thought it was sort of obvious. One is a genius. That always, to me, it always seemed like it was the brain. He seemed like he at least thought of himself as a genius. And while I don't think the word for Pinky is really, it probably shouldn't be insane, but it rhymes with brain.
Yeah.
So it should have been he's sort of a dope. But anyway, that was my thought.
Yeah, like it's actually opposite. That's all mine.
Right. It's the definition of being insane is to keep doing the same thing and failing.
And also, he comes to for a second. He always mentions that, oh no, we want to by the means of this. And usually that what happened. But you understand it's kind of possible flaw in Ben's plan.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm not going to argue with anyone who thinks that Pinky's a genius, but I'm not going to hang out with you.
Well, I think it's important to note about Pinky the Brain. Many of you may not know, Tom actually is the man who wrote the lyrics to Animaniacs theme song, as well as the Pinky the Brain theme song. And it was not that we're used to the Pinky and the Brain.
Oh, right, yes. So originally when I pitched the show to Stephen, we literally, this is the true origin story. We went to Stephen's house on a Saturday morning, Gene McCurdy, Sherry Stoner, and I, and we had milk and cookies, and we pitched all these different segments for Animaniacs, the Warners, Slappy. So I had written out the lyrics to the Pinky and the Brain song, but I didn't have a tune, so I went with the tune of Singing in the Rain. And that's what I wrote it to originally. So, Singing in the Rain, Pinky in the Brain?
Sure. Let me give it a crack. They're pink Pinky and the Brain. Yes, Pinky and the Brain.
Let's see. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice. Their genes have been spliced. They're Pinky and the Brain. So,
Yeah.
very nice. And so I did that, and Stephen looked and said, "Sold." So that worked. We pitched all these different segments. Stephen's family came in at one point. Stephen had bailed out on Mindy and Buttons. He said, "Nah, we got too many duos. We got Rita and Runt. We have Pinky and the Brain. We don't need another duo." So Mindy and the Buttons were out. So Kate Capshaw, Mrs. Spielberg, came in with a passel. They have a lot of kids, and one of the toddler comes over to. We have these stand-ups, these cutouts of all the characters, and goes up to Mindy and says, "I like her." And Stephen says, "Mindy and Buttons are back in." And that's how they survived the cut. Hey, good to see you.
I just wanted to know, you're so many cool characters in Animaniacs, were there any special ones that were cut? Did you ever see any
Yeah. Oh gosh, there were a couple of raccoons. Not Shecky and Green, but there were a couple of raccoons that. Pardon me?
There were beavers too.
Well, Bossy Beaver and Doyle didn't make it. He was the bossiest beaver, and he just wanted to build the best dam ever.
Deanna had a couple of geckos, I think, right?
Yeah, Gecko and Chuck Walla.
Yeah.
Gecko and Chuck Walla. There were a couple of raccoons. I'm trying to remember. We were going to have the Fox censors, the two Fox censors. They were in Tiny Toons. And we were going to continue them, but Fox said, "Please don't." So we did. And by the way, Slappy Squirrel started as a great writer, wonderful guy named Earl Kress came up with this character called Senior Squirrel. So he was basically Screwy Squirrel from the Tex Avery days, as an old squirrel living in the cartoon rest home. But he was still bombing, still blowing up people. He was Screwy Squirrel, and he was called Senior Squirrel. But then also it was sort of, what was it, SENIR, like an elderly squirrel, or was it a senior squirrel? So anyway, so that evolved into Sherry Stoner walking in and reading Senior Squirrel's lines as the character we all know Slappy is, and it became a woman and a great character. One of the great, in my opinion, one of the great female cartoon characters ever. Yeah,
I love Slappy.
However, speaking of Fox, I was wondering, what was like transitioning from Fox to Kids WB?
It was like going from being on one of the huge television broadcasters of all time, going from that to shortwave radio. Because the WB had very low coverage, so our ratings were through the roof on Fox. I mean, we owned children's television. And then we went to Kids WB, and suddenly, people are writing to us, "Where's the show? We can't see this." So the WB did not have a great launch with a lot of channels. In fact, in Los Angeles, the WB premiered, Pinky and the Brain went prime time in Los Angeles. On Sunday at 7 p.m. on the WB, their premiere of that week. And I think Chuck Jones was there for the premiere. Anyway, so we went on. It was on Channel 5, and the broadcast didn't show up. Channel 5 was black for 10 minutes. And it was like, Where's our show? And suddenly, 10 minutes in, suddenly we're on a submarine with Pinky in the Brain and Das Boot, and it was just a disaster. So the WB had lots of problems.
It was almost impossible to watch as a fan, or me, yeah.
I know.
There's about 5 minutes left.
Okay, but wait, you go ahead.
No. It's question mark word. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Okay, question right here.
Was there ever an episode idea across any of the shows that you worked on, be it Animaniacs, 70, Tiny Toons, whatever, that had to be scrapped either because you were just like, this is turkey, this is like a disaster, or because Spielberg or one of the execs said, no, you really cannot?
Yeah, we had one, and Joey, there's a gentleman over here. Yes, we had a bunch of cartoons that, we wanted them to work, but they didn't. We had one, it was called, there's a famous song that Joanna probably knows. It's from a Judy Garland movie where she's singing a song to Clark Gable. Judy Garland, Dear Mr. Gable.
I am writing this to you, and I hope that you will read it so you'll know. It's, you made me love you.
Yes.
I didn't want to do it.
So Randy Ruegger wrote a song, Dear Mr. Gingrich, I want to... let's see, dear Mr. Gingrich.
I think you're cute.
Yeah, I think you're quite a beaut. And so it's Dot doing the Clark Gable song, but in a way of ridiculing Newt Gingrich, who was the head of the Congress. He was the lead Republican in Congress, and he had something called the Challenge for America. Yes. And it was really a disaster. So we were really ribbing the guy. And Stephen disliked Newt Gingrich so much. And the song was truly ridiculing him. He says, I dislike him so much that I don't want his name mentioned on the show. So
yeah. You can find notes of that in Gingrich song on YouTube. Little bits of it. So,
All right, so my question is, Animaniacs is definitely famous for, carrying a lot of, famous celebrities and politicians at the time as well. Was it tragic, or were you in the side belief that Animaniacs had ended, and then a month later you have the Clinton impeachment?
Was it a month later? When was his impeachment? Oh, well, we felt like we had given him given him kind of a tough time by having him playing the sax in the main title. But I'll tell you that, as you might imagine, Mr. Spielberg is very close to a lot of different people. And Stephen presented Mr. Clinton with that cell of himself playing the sax with the Warners popping out of the thing. And I'm told that Mr. Clinton loved it. So I don't think we would have ribbed him too hard, because they were close. Yes. I did make a cartoon, Warner's, the Christmas episode where they play the three shepherds in the field, and we do Drummer Boy cartoon. We made that, and Stephen was away making Schindler's List. And so he came back, and he hadn't seen anything we had been doing for almost the entire first season. So he came in, we came to the conference room, we had a little film festival for him. And so we showed him Little Drummer Warners, and he loved it. And he said, "So when's our Hanukkah story? Where is it?" So, but we never got to that.
Okay. We have time for, I think, one more question. I do want to just point out, Tom is located down in the, what do they call it, the hall?
Exhibit hall.
The exhibit hall down there,
the Walk of
Fame.
Walk of Fame, yes.
Walk of Fame. And you could ask additional questions to Tom. Will be down there a little later today after all this. So we have a question right here. Yes.
When you were first making the show, did you imagine it to still be so popular, so later?
No, when we were making it, we were all working there at Warner Brothers. We wanted to make the best cartoons we could. I will tell you that prior to working on Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, I had been working at Hanna-Barbera and Filmation. And while I had some wonderful experiences there, the quality of the animation was not really up to snuff. It just was not a high priority. So the great combination of factors came up. I'll tell you what the factors were. Batman, the feature film, was a huge hit. Warner Brothers was suddenly cash rich. Steven Spielberg and Terry Semel, the guy that was running Warner Brothers, were pals. Semel said, I want you to work with us, Steven. He said, I don't know. I do like your Looney Tunes, though. I'd like to do something with them. And so that's where Tiny Toons came about. Steven wanted to marry, but they didn't want to give Steven a big chunk of the Looney Tune merchandising franchise. So they said, well, it has to be not Looney Tunes. They have to be like something other than Looney Tunes. So Steven and Warner's were getting together. They had a lot of money from Batman. They could put a big budget behind Tiny Toons. And when that was a success, then they really gave us the keys to the car, and they let us just make up something original, which was Animaniacs. Now, it was my favorite job, and I'm thrilled that it has lasted, but not many shows back then had the time and the staff and the funny creative people involved, so we were lucky with that. Also, we had this wonderful orchestra. Nobody was using like a 30-piece orchestra like we were. So they sound good, they look good, they're funny. I'm delighted they still work.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Let's thank Tom Ruegger.
Now, if you'll remember, at the very beginning of our event, I asked you to come up with a show, an episode that you really like. Now, what I want you each to do, I want you now to turn to someone you don't know, introduce yourself by name, and tell them what that episode is. So go do that now. Just take the next minute, turn to someone, tell them your name and your favorite.
My name is Joey, and I like clowning out.
Warner's 65th anniversary special.
65th anniversary special. Okay, so now that everyone has done that, congratulations, you now have your own special friend.
Your new special friend.
Your new special friend, as we say in Animaniacs.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animanicast unless otherwise indicated.